Good morning, community. Thank you for coming this morning on short notice. I give thanks for everyone joining us this morning. I'd first like to give recognition to the Mayor of Kalamazoo, Mayor Anderson, who's here, City Manager Jim Ritzma is here. Also like to say thanks for the administration of the KTC, Sean McBride and Kathy Schultz, who are both here, our partners, and I'll get into that in our partners. But let's talk about the reason why we're here. On Saturday, 11/27, our community was devastated by the events that happened at the Kalamazoo Transit Center. And today we want to provide some additional information to our community about what happened. First and foremost, on behalf of the entire department, I want to give thanks and blessings to those victims that were brought into this situation and this event through gunfire. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. I also want to give and send out condolences to the family and the loved ones of Mr. Oliver. Now I want to take a moment to thank several people for the roles that have played in this rapidly evolving situation. I want to give a big thanks to those who go out to the men and women of the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety who responded that morning to gunfire and respond every morning and every day. Their courage and decisive action kept us in this community safe and the number of people that were injured to a minimum. And finally, I want to thank our community, the witnesses, the bus drivers, the KTC Metro staff for their courage, for working with our officers, our partners, the Michigan State Police, the internal detectives here at Public Safety on that day and the days following. Their cooperation was invaluable. I want to thank them for that. I also like to say kudos to our partners here also. We have Portage Police Department here, Township Police Department here. The sheriff could not be here. He had a prior engagement, but Western Michigan University, Township is here as I stated, and MSP is here as well. I am now going to remind you that this case has been turned over. It is still a rapidly evolving investigative case and is being handled by the Michigan State Police. Those things that can be said will be, or answered I should say, as much as creative to our ability to tell and talk about. Lieutenant Shane Krieger is here and he will give those things and will speak on the events of what happened specifically on Saturday. We will also show a video of the incident. Lieutenant Krieger, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chief. And thanks everyone for coming. We appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about the events that occurred last Saturday. First and foremost, I know everyone here realizes that this is and was a very large-scale event that has occurred, and due to that fact, it is still very early on in this investigation. So that being said, there are a lot of things that here today that cannot be answered and a lot of facts and details that cannot be shared. However, we do realize the impact that this has had within this community, so we thought it best to be able to give out as much as we can, as early as we can, to be able to try to answer some of those questions for everyone involved with the media and within the community. So, that being said, as the Chief mentioned, the State Police has been asked by KDPS and the local county prosecutor to come in and take the lead on this investigation, which is typical in any time there's an officer-involved shooting. This particular event, as the Chief mentioned, happened last Saturday on the 27th, when the Kalamazoo Central Dispatch began receiving numerous 911 calls that there was gunfire at the Kalamazoo Transportation Center. At 9:11 a.m., an armed subject that we were able to identify as Anthony Oliver came into the transportation center and opened fire and struck 3 unarmed citizens at that time. Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety officers were able to respond and arrive on scene within 2 minutes of dispatch receiving that initial call. Once on scene, they were able to locate the suspect. At that time, gunfire was exchanged, and Mr. Oliver was struck by gunfire. The officers on scene immediately began rendering first aid, and he was transported at that time to the local hospital. However, he did die of the wounds suffered that morning. The motive behind Mr. Oliver's actions at this time has not been established, and we have not been clear on that yet. I know there's a lot of questions remaining about this incident, and as mentioned, there's a lot of details that cannot be shared. But over the next few weeks, the detectives that have been assigned to this case are going to be working every day to answer some of those questions. At the conclusion of that investigation, this will, as usual, be turned over to the Kalamazoo County Prosecutor's Office for an independent review of everything involved, including the officer's actions in the shooting. And as the Chief mentioned, what KDPS has done is been able to provide a video for you that we're going to show you in just a couple minutes. And what this video is as everyone I'm sure is aware, there are multiple cameras at the Kalamazoo Transportation Center itself and on buses. They've been able to, we don't even have all of the video yet, but the video we do have, they've been able to provide about a 5-minute video of a compilation and a combination of videos that has been put together, which pretty much encompasses the major events that occurred that morning. As you're going to see on this video, there are several people that were at the transportation center, and many of them have not been identified. So the one thing I would ask is that if anyone was there at that morning and did witness something and have not been contacted by a detective, that they please give us a call. And we have set up a tip line for that. That information will be available to you, but that number is 844-642-8384. And additionally, there's been an email address that will be provided as well, that they can email in their name, contact information, or any tips. And that email is msp-51tips@michigan.gov. So right now, prior to answering any questions, we're going to take a look at this video. It's about 5 minutes long, and hopefully that will answer some of these questions that remain unanswered.
All right, folks, that concludes the formal portion of our press conference. We will take a few questions. Does anyone have any to start? Marie?
Was there any indication that Oliver knew the person who shot? The video looked like he ignored a citizen standing there and went towards the bus.
Yeah, we're working through that right now, but at this time, there's no indication of that.
Any information on the gun?
Yes.
Can you get over by the mics?
Yeah, sorry. The question was, is there any information on the gun? We have tracked down and spoken with the last registered owner of the gun, but all indications are is that person was not involved in this at all. The last information I got was that the gun changed hands 3 times between the last registered owner of the gun and this incident.
Type gun?
Pardon?
Type of gun?
It was a pistol, as you've seen in there. We're going to let our lab sort through all that.
Did Oliver fire any shots?
Yes.
Do you know how many?
It has not been confirmed. Again, so, you know, one of the things that takes a lot of time is lab reports and results. That obviously takes a lot of time with their processing of all the different things that they do. Autopsy results and toxicology results. That's why a lot of these things take so much time to get confirmation.
How are the victims doing?
The victims are doing okay. They're all survived, and they've all been released from the hospital at this point. They have also all been interviewed by detectives.
Just for clarification, did Oliver shoot at police at any time, or did they see him shoot at others? That is for clarification.
Yeah, and that's something that we're waiting on the lab to confirm before we put out an official statement on that. But you know, you guys will. The chief is going to provide you with a copy of this video, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. That'll answer that.
Was there any reports or signs from family that he needed help with mental health or anything like that?
That's something we're working through. The suspect did have an extensive criminal history, which includes armed robbery and assault against a police officer in the past. And additionally, we did find a report in 2018 where Mr. Oliver did threaten suicide by cop, and he spoke of wanting to end it that way. It is my understanding that he was admitted to a mental hospital at that time, and he was evaluated. Other than that, that's all we've been able to confirm, so I do not have any further details on that question.
Has Oliver's autopsy happened?
Yes, it has. There's just been no report from it, so I can't have any details about that.
Any additional questions?
Can you speak at all if Metro changed their security processes, anything like that?
I cannot. I don't know if the chief can. That's not something that we are involved with or will get involved with.
Is this being investigated as an act of terrorism?
No.
Are you guys going to give any, or you or hopefully from KPS's side of things, are you going to recommend any security changes from either of your agencies or from security that may be partly owned by Metro or hired by Metro, excuse me?
As part of our role in this, we will not.
As part of our role as partners with the community,
Microphone?
as part of our role in this community, as a law enforcement agency, along with others, we will continue to collaborate and foster that relationship.
Well, Lieutenant, has there been any estimate as to how many people were possibly there inside the bus where it mostly happened, and the station at one time? Has there been an estimate as to how many since that has happened?
I don't have that estimate. The detectives have canvassed the area. They've spoken with every witness they've been able to identify. We know there are more, and that's why we set up that tip line and that email to be able to hopefully identify others that were there that did directly witness something and have not yet been identified or spoken with.
All right, folks, if there are no further, oh, go ahead.
Mayor Anderson?
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Bridges. I just want to say something that might not be too short. There's a lot of things I could say, and I won't say all of them, but I guess I just want to respond from the human community perspective here. And first thing, I do want to say thank you very specifically to our public safety department and those brave men and women who respond to situations like this, putting their own lives totally at risk for the singular purpose of making sure that other people are safe. So that's my first thing I want to say. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, team, for that. I also want to say I really appreciate the Michigan State Police and the chief inviting them in and saying, any officer involved shooting, this is investigated by a separate department. We are not involved in that, specifically doing our own internal investigation only on this. And I think that's very, very important. This is not something that happened to somebody else. This is something that happened to us. Look around in this room. Is this good for anybody? Is this good for the press? Is this what you want to be focusing on? The details of this kind of thing? Is this good for our public safety officers that had to respond in a situation using something I am sure they don't want to have to use, deadly force? Is this good for the people who were at the bus station? Is this good for the 3 people that were shot? Is this good for the son of Anthony Oliver and his family? No. As a community, this is not good for us. So, what do we need to do about it? I believe there's a couple things. One perhaps a little smaller, but the other one bigger. Maybe the smaller one, not so small, is that we need to make sure in our community, as we talk to each other, in our friends, and we have those community conversations and those family conversations, that we destigmatize mental health services. There is nothing wrong with encouraging a family member or a friend to say, hey, I think you need some help. I will do everything I can to get you to that help. And I will suggest that that needs to occur for everybody who was part of this event. I'm going to say, for public safety, I hope you're getting the support that you need. This is not something you're going to forget being part of this. For the people who were there, for the family members, for the families of people that were shot, let's make sure we take advantage of that support. That support can happen from our faith community, can happen from our mental health community. Let's make sure that we're together for each other. Let's make sure that the ripples from this, that, trust me, are going to go on and on, that we try to stop those ripples as much as we can. And then the other thing, which is bigger, is that I know it's our job to talk about things and get very specific about a very specific event and ask something, what exactly did happen here? But in the grander scheme of things, we need to be creating a world of hope, not nihilism, not the trajectory of things are just getting worse. And that's what we're focusing on. We together have to be beacons of that hope for each other so that people don't feel like this is all that's in front of me. This is the only choice I have. And that is a huge cultural change, in my opinion, right now. And if we don't individually take responsibility, we will not change the trajectory. Sorry. This is important. Let's treat it as important, and let's do individual big things when we're involved in a situation like this to head off these kinds of events in the future and give those of us who we live with in this time hope for their own futures. So thank you.
Again, thank you all for coming. That
I
is
have one more question. What's the status of the officers involved in the shooting? How many were there?
There were 3, and they are currently on administrative leave.
All right, thank you.
But they weren't hurt that day, correct?
I'm sorry?
They weren't hurt that day or had to be taken to the hospital?
No,